Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the VML, sponsored by Wizards of the Coast and GLHF. My name is Nicole Callahan, also known as Lady of the Crease, and I am joined here today for their VML production debut by Kuro. Kuro, how are you doing? I turned the right
I'm
way,
doing.
dude. This is great.
I know I'm on the wrong side, right?
No,
I'm doing great
you're on
tonight.
the
I'm
right
really
side. This is great. I'm so
I'm really
excited to
excited to
have you.
commentate. I'm really
It's
excited
so
to be here.
It's so awesome. We have expanded our production team this season. And when I'm talking about this season, I'm talking about season number 8 of the VML. If you don't know who we are a 10-week long Magic the Gathering Arena League showcasing the amazing talents of people of marginalized genders within the Magic community. This season is our biggest yet, 128 players divided up into 16 divisions. There is 7 weeks of round robin play before we cut to a playoff of the top 32. This is, like I said, week number 3, but it is our final week in Dominaria Standard. So this is our last week before we dive into the world of the Brothers War. And I'm stoked to see what's going on. So why don't we start with you, Carl? Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Tell us about what you've loved about this standard, what you're excited to see tonight.
Yeah. So I've been playing for about 12 years. My specialty is blue-white control. Unfortunately, we weren't able to say blue-white control tonight, but that's okay because we got some lovely games up for everybody. I'm really interested in this standard because there's a lot of stuff going on that you might be a little sick of at this point, but we still have a lot of very interesting plays that come from all the different like sagas, all the different spells. People are still going back and forth, and oh man, it's just very exciting.
It is super exciting. Just like this season has been super exciting too. If you are interested in joining the VML at some point, make sure you're following us on Twitter, I suppose, for now at VML But we also have an amazing community on Discord, so you can definitely find us there as well. And I'm excited to kind of just dive right in here and take a look at these awesome matchups that we have tonight. Uh, I don't know that we'll be saying goodbye to any of these powerhouses. Grixis midrange, Esper midrange. Esper people have been talking about that new Teferi slotting in and things like that. So we see 3 mid-range decks sitting at the top of our list here, followed by a couple of tempo decks. What are your thoughts on this metagame breakdown?
Well, it's really interesting because last 2 weeks we saw Esper and midrange being the top, and now people seem to be gravitating more towards Grixis. I feel like that's more of a latent long-term effect of what Worlds told us, but I bet it also has to do with the results that people have been looking at. And we still see the mono blue decks too down there. I think that's still important because people are trying to do that as sort of a niche way to address these mid-range decks because they get under there.
Oh, for sure. Now, I know we have quite a few mid-range decks on the docket tonight. And one of the cool things about the mid-range decks, I will say, is that there isn't just a solid 75. There's a lot of flex. There's, like looking at how many copies of what you want to play. Are you playing cut down in the main? Is it a sideboard card? How many unlicensed hearses do you want in the sideboard for that mono blue tempo matchup? Things like that. So they're very flexible, very fluid deck lists, and I kind of like that. It's a very dynamic standard, even though it might look like it's totally overrun by mid-range decks.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't let the pie chart fool you. Just because everyone in that wedge is playing Grixis midrange does not necessarily mean that they have the same ways of winning the game.
That is
I mean,
the truth. And with that, let's get into our first matchup here. We are moving on to division number 11, and we're looking at Ash's Jeskai Taxes. Now, this is a deck. This is a strategy that we saw somewhat in the last standard with Hanada, but it's a little bit different. And I think this is the closest that we're going to get to a control deck tonight. So why don't you take it away, Kuro, and tell me about what you see here?
yeah. Thank you for giving me the reins about the
Oh
control
my God.
deck.
Please take it. It's yours.
Yes. So the interesting thing about taxes as a strategy is that it's basically a proactive control deck where you're trying. It is true that you're trying to make sure your opponent can't cast their spells on curve, such as Ash says on their description there. But you have to play them on curve. And unlike control, where you're playing answers, you're trying to prevent their opponent from playing their threats at all, which can be very difficult depending on what threats they have. So you have to modify your deck based on that. I'm really excited to see how this will play.
Yes, and we see that Ash's opponent, Zoe, is on the most popular deck, Grixis Midrange here. So we could see some of the cards to watch: Duress and Fable of the Mirror Breaker, which most people say is the best card in Standard right now. I don't know that that remains. I don't know, that if you believe that, but it supplies, board presence and some card advantage, which maybe is what Zoe's going to look for in this matchup.
I certainly believe Fable is one of the better cards, if not the best card in Standard, and it's going to especially be good in this matchup. If Zoe can land a Fable before the taxes comes down, or maybe during that, that extra treasure token can really get there. And then the duress in the sideboard it's always interesting to see whether players play duress in the sideboard or the main deck, because people seem to be split on that. This one, she decides to take it into the sideboard, so we'll have to see if that's relevant in this matchup. It may very well be.
For sure. And I just want to make a quick note. We asked what card from Brothers War these players are most afraid to play against. And I think we're 2 for 2 with Teferi so far. And I'm very curious to see how many people say Teferi tonight. If that's going to be, if you can't beat him, join him sort of thing. So
I won't spoil the answer, but the answer
Right?
may not surprise you, actually.
I was going to say, should I start a Teferi tally here? I think we'll start a Teferi
You
tally
should.
and tick off two for Teferi tonight on who's the scariest card in Brothers War. But for now, let's get into our first matchup here. So we have Zoe Connell on Grixis Midrange and Ash on Jeskai Taxes. We'll be watching from the side of Ash. She is in front of us with the 3 lands and 4 spells, looking pretty good. On the other side, a little more land heavy for Zoe. It's 5 lands and a Fertile Grass and a Fable and the Mirror Breaker, but Fable certainly good at getting rid of those extra lands if need be. What is your thoughts on that opener for Zoe on the draw?
I do like the hand, considering Fable is in it, because you're right that they can discard, but the fact that Ash is going first, that allows them to get the Peacekeeper down before, oh, see there, so Zoe is mulligan now, and recognizing, yeah, because it is open decklet, so she does know that Ash is playing taxes.
Yes, I would say definitely a very disciplined mulligan from the side of Zoe, because I might have kept that, but a very good 6 here, 2-drop into 3-drop, and then a powerful card in Invoke Despair. We'll see if that happens. But both players starting with a little nothing on turn 1, but a Guardian of New Benalia coming on the side of Ash here, followed by a Blood Tithe Harvester on Zoe's side. A lot of people talk about Fable and Mirror Breaker being the best card in Standard, but Blood Tithe Harvester is just everywhere.
Oh, I know. It really gets into that Guardian, too, because discarding card does absolutely nothing against that -2/-2 that's going to provide.
Right.
I also want to notice the Torch Breaths, the main deck Torch Breaths. I missed those completely, but that is a fascinating pick, probably to meta against Esper.
Yes, we see there are 3 main deck Torch Breaths actually in that deck. Wow. So it's a lot. That's a lot on the side of Ash. We see to try to take care of early threats such as Blood Tithe Harvester, but we'll see Guardian of Benalia going to get into the red zone before deciding whether or not to fire off a removal spell. But it's going to be Anointed Peacekeeper here to take a look at Zoe's hand, revealing double lands, 2 Fables, and the Invoke Despair. So those Fables went from being 3 mana to 5 mana. So not quite the best deck, the best card in Standard at the moment at 5 mana.
Yeah, and the fact that Zoe had 2 in her hand, that basically grinds that strategy to a halt, because now she has to decide if she wants to sacrifice the Harvester to kill the Guardian, then that's no board presence for 3 more turns, which is insane against a Tepo deck such as Taxes. So there's that, and now Zoe has pretty much nothing to do unless she sacks the blood token and gets lucky enough to draw something. Oh,
and that's looks like what it's going to do. And it's a 3rd Fable of the Mirror Breaker. So that's a lot of fabling going on. But so the train's not going to stop from Ash's side here. Sunrise Cavalier coming down, getting in for 6. Zoe's down at 12 life. Otawara might be able to buy a little time, but not looking too great to be able to bounce that Anointed Peacekeeper, perhaps. But
You need that 5th land to cast the or the Invoke Despair. If you are, oh, man,
this is a
what a
tough
tough
spot.
situation. Yeah, I agree, for sure. And Ash is sitting very tightly. If Zoe plays a single threat, the Torch Breath will just kill it. So it doesn't matter if Zoe gets a blocker. Zoe needs removal for sure. Oh, man.
Oh, another
Oh, no.
Guardian of New Benalia is the draw on the side of Ash. And we'll see that it did go from day to night for that Sunrise Cavalier. So it got even a little bit bigger. Not really changing the clock, going from 3/3 to a 4/4. But Zoe feeling the need to bounce the 4/4 back to hand with Odawara. So saying, all right, you can get in for 3 with your Anointed Peacekeeper and you can replay your Haster if you'd like after, but I'm not going to take 4 more this turn. So just try to buy a little time here and there. Thran Portal coming in tapped. And what will the follow-up be?
Guardian. The thing is, I'm trying to think about what is in Zoe's deck that she could potentially draw that would get her out of this situation. I'm having trouble drawing anything. Oh, okay. Interesting
We'll see.
draw. Jaya Ballard.
Yes, Jaya is a one of in the main deck in Zoe's list. So a powerful draw. Looks like going to make a 1/1 red monk with prowess.
So but now the Torch Breath is the target, which is a problem. Aha. And Torch Breath hits Planeswalkers too, so that Jaya is probably dead.
Yes, we'll see. Thalia making everything in Zoe's hand as if it wasn't expensive enough. This deck is called Jeskai Taxes for a reason. Taxing for sure. Although cannot play both Sunrise Cavalier and Thalia right now, is only one white source on the side of Ash. So going to take care of Jaya as she would have been just short of lethal. So Anointed Peacekeeper goes face, Guardian Cavalier take care of Jaya, and a land is the draw for Zoe. But it might be too little too late here.
Yeah, I just don't see it. It's just, dang. It's interesting that decision to do that Thran Portal on red instead of white, because that was the last land that Ash played there. So the decision to put it on white, really, I guess this is an example where that really matters.
Yep.
Of course. It's still a win, but
we'll see. Anointed Peacekeeper and Cavalier finish things off there, and moving to sideboard. So game number 1 will go to Jeskai Taxes and Ash. And I will mention that this is, I know it's only week 3, but both of these players are undefeated at the moment. They are both 2-0 in division number 11. And this season, it's a clean cut. So if you were in the top 2 in your division, you move on to the playoffs. If you're not, sign up for the next season. So give it another try. So
just do better next time.
Yes. Listen, you're talking to somebody who's 0-2 right now, so it's between you.
Well, now we see the Torch Breaths get sided out, which makes total sense right now because we're not seeing any blue cards, blue creatures, nevertheless.
Right,
and they're siding in counter spells. That makes sense. Yeah.
They did sit in. They sat in the Ash's hand for a bit in the last game, the Torch Breaths. So they didn't really perform. It makes sense for sure. And we'll see what Zoe decides to do here.
Some negates going away. That makes sense. There's creatures, the expensive removal spells, Wandering Mind. Yeah. Anything that gets taxed, you have to think about your curve, and you have to think about if this gets taxed by 1 or 2 mana, is this okay still? And that's why Cut Down gets sided in, because it's fantastic. Even if it's 3 mana, you're still killing most of the stuff, except for the Anointed Peacekeepers, but that's what Infernal Grasp and the Braid is for, too. So.
Yeah, you can see happy to keep in cheaper spells like Make Disappear or Rona's Vortex on the play here, taking care of something like a Thalia or an Anointed Peacekeeper, perhaps.
Absolutely. And there's an interesting extra strategy, too, is taking out 1 Fable so that you don't get stuck in that situation where you get taxed by 1 card and you don't draw 3 of them because you play 4 in your deck. That's an interesting angle here. this is what they're gonna go for. Oh no!
Oh,
There it is. The soul transfer goes back in.
Shava Liliana for soul transfer. See that? And let's take a look at these hands. We got 2 lands and 4 spells, 4 cheap spells on the side of Ash. Zoe's got 4 lands, a Make Disappear, Rona's Vortex, and a soul transfer. So very reactive hand on the side of Zoe for being on the play. What are your thoughts of these openers?
Well, normally I would say that Ash has the upper hand because of that curve, but that white land enters tapped, which is a huge deal. So now Zoe has an opportunity to use that counterspell. So if Ash plays that Thalia, it's going to get countered. There it goes. And now Zoe has a Braid up, Soul Transfer up, basically removal for the next 3 creatures that Ash plays. And Invoke Despair. Oh, but Invoke Despair, there's 2 Shivan Reefs, so needs 2 more black lands.
Oh, wow.
Doesn't
Yes.
there.
And we'll see Anointed Peacekeeper get and take a little peek. A peek keeper. At
Peacekeeper, I was gonna
peek keeper.
Her name
Peeker. What do you think? This is a hard pick. I feel like, you know, there are a lot of like cheaper spells, but you feel like you play it.
Yeah.
If your opponent can just abrade the thing you played, and
absolutely, I think you still name a Braid because that's the obvious play. So you need to prevent them from being able to have mana to do something else. Like maybe they would have top decked a Blood Tithe Harvester, and then they could have Braid and then Blood Tithe. So you have to make sure that happens. Oh,
sure.
But they're not. But Zoe's not picking a Braid. Looks like.
No, it looks like Zoe's going to pick the Soul Transfer to exile the Anointed Peacekeeper instead.
Interesting decision.
Perhaps that had something to do with being taxed later on and wanting to play the more expensive spell.
Potentially. I like that. I think that makes sense, yes, because if Ash played a second one, a second peak keeper, as you like to call it, then that would have been taxed, and Zoe wouldn't have been able to play it because it would have been 5 mana. She only has 4 lands. Interesting.
Let's see, Hopeful Initiate and Guardian of New Benalia. So starting to build a bit of a board presence on the side of Ash as we look to the side, and still a lot of reactive cards, in Zoe's hand in Cut Down, Braid, Rona's Vortex, and Invoke Despair. Like you said, that is still uncastable, still need 1 more black land, but it is there.
You did draw the Haunted Mire, which means she's 1 closer. That's perfect. That's exactly what you want to be seeing if you're Grixis.
Right. So close. Now, so Cut Down, a Braid, and Rona's Vortex in hand. It looks like Cut Down to perhaps take care of this Hopeful Initiate. Yes, that's what it looks like. The target will be no needing to Spell Pierce there.
That's a Raiju, and with 1 mana open to hold out Spell Pierce. Oh, so good. So the question is, will Zoe respond with a Braid or Rona's Vortex? Because this is open deck list. She knows.
There are Spell Pierces.
There it is. Yeah. If that was the Rona's Vortex, that would not have gotten there.
As we
Very good play on Zoe's part. And that would not have been possible. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no. We see a Braid take care of it. That was a very good call on Zoe. Like you said, very, very well played.
And it would not have been possible if Zoe had played a Braid on the Peacekeeper earlier in the game.
That's next level stuff. See, playing for the next turn, not for this turn, right? We're playing for 5 turns down the road.
Thinking universe-style strats. So Ash is choosing to keep the land in the hand, which makes total sense to me because you always want to have fodder for that Guardian, just in case. Of course, Rona's Vortex gets countered by Spell Pierce, but this is not so terrible.
No, not too bad.
Harvester, it's fine. I mean, it definitely gets killed by the bull. Of course, you can't predict that 100% of the time or anything, so it is what it is.
Right, and you see left in Zoe's hand is an Infertile Grass and an Invoke Despair. So, 1 black land away still of being able to take care of that Guardian anyway. And
I would be tempted to cycle away the Grasp and just to try to get the Swamp, although not so tempted that I would actually do it. Oh, this Corpse Appraiser though.
Corpse Praiser, a really, really powerful card.
Absolutely fabulous. Even if it gets killed, you still get to draw a card, which is pretty awesome.
Getting the value out of Corpse Praiser is super important. We'll see. Ash doesn't want anything to do with that. Just gonna march it right now. Just get that out of here. Gone.
Absolutely.
Goodbye.
Because you don't want Zoe to get a counter spell with the Corpse Appraiser trigger and then counter the removal. You want that blocker out of there to get that Guardian to continue to hit. There's the black source. There it is.
There it is. Found it. Got there. So, and just 2 lands in Ash's hands now. So Guardian New Benalia is, great and all, but it's still a 2/2, and Zoe's sitting at 11 life. So that's quite some time to go. And this Invoke Despair is going to draw some cards. And oh my gosh, another Corpse Appraiser. Who needs Invoke Despair? Just keep playing Corpse Appraisers. Those are great, right?
Well, I think Zoe is playing around Spell Pierce again, right?
Ooh.
Because if you Invoke Despair at 6 lands and you get Spell Pierce, that's hugely terrible. And and the Guardian's out. So the arena's going to give priority to you every single phase. So there's no way to tell if your opponent has anything.
Yes, there are 2 Spell Pierces and a Disdainful Stroke in the sideboard of this Jeskai Taxes deck.
Yeah. Ooh, Cavalier. Or Cavalier. I'm probably saying it wrong.
I like Cavalier. There is a hockey player, Vincent LeCavalier.
Oh.
It's great. One of the best of all time. A goat, if you will.
There's the Infernal Grasp getting its use after 6 turns of staying in the hand. Has a backup too. Fantastic. And interesting.
So we see, and there's no blue left up on the side of Ash right now. So that Invoke Despair, clear for takeoff. And going to take care of that Guardian of New Benalia, draw a cut down. So adding even more removal to the hand. And then a Takanuma Abandoned Mire. So going to be able to recover something that may have already gone to the bin.
This may be me thinking way too hard about this, but the fact that the auto tapper is tapping Shiv and Wreath is giving Zoe so much information about what Ash has in her hand.
That's true.
And it's subtle, right? And it's the sort of thing that this is why like you see some people be so finicky about tapping manually, because Arena is like, it thinks you want it a certain way. It doesn't understand what bluffing is.
I've gotten into some arguments with Arena before. I'm like, what are you doing? We're not talking.
I have a long list of things that happens in Arena that would never happen in real life.
And now we see
Hinata.
We see Hinata coming down. So Hinata, just a 2 of in the list. It's going to get Infernal Grasp like right away. But one of the cards I was surprised to see still in Standard, but definitely fits right in with this Jeskai Taxes deck.
So here's oh, sorry.
No, please go ahead.
Well, here's an interesting thing. Again, the auto tapper is tapping Zoe's lands and leaving the pain lands untapped, which means that she can't cast Invoke Despair after the Wandering Man gets it. Oh well, it's fine anyway.
It's fine.
But little things like that, making sure you have quad black just in case you draw it. Like little things like that can really mean the difference sometimes.
It certainly can.
All right.
We'll take a look here at sideboard. See if any player wants to change things up after we were at 1 game apiece heading into game number 3 in this matchup between Jeskai Taxes and Grixis Midrange. So we're looking at the Jeskai Taxes side. Now, between play and draw, do you see much of a difference? Or is there anything that stands out to you that you might want more of? It looks like the Hinatas are totally coming out.
Yeah, it makes sense to me to bring in the adversary or the adversaries, because they are a really early play. And Hinata in that game, as we saw, got completely annihilated by a 2-mana removal spell. So even the thing about taxer is like Thalia, you want to make sure that you tax them removal spells to be more expensive than the taxer you play. That's why Peacekeeper and Thalia see play. So you can make 1 mana things cost 2, you make 2 mana things cost 4. So it makes your opponent stumble. But Hinata doesn't necessarily do that. A 2-mana spell becomes 3, and Hinata's 4. So your opponent's still getting that mana advantage. Let's see what this sideboard is, though, as well.
Yeah, we'll take a look right now we have the Grixis midrange deck in the hands of Zoe on the screen. It looks like, you know, a couple changes here and there between play and draw.
Lily comes in. Interesting. Wow, both of these hands.
Lily was a quick, like a last minute cut in the game number 2. So wanting it here on the draw. Interesting.
This is both of these hands are actually really good, and they both have insane curves. Let's see how this pans out.
Yeah, we see though, well, sort of a 1-2-3 curve on the side of Zoe, but the cut down not being able to be cast because of that Haunted Bridge on turn number 1.
Oh,
But
the difference but then if Zoe had played that untapped land, there was no way to play Blood Tithe because the only other untapped land for turn 2 was the Otawara.
yes, and sometimes, you know, holding the Otawara for its channel ability is preferred sometimes as well. But we see Intrepid Adversary coming down. So that's going to Flame Blast Bolt take care of that Blood Tithe Harvester. Gone, and Intrepid Adversary get across for 3. So Zoe to 15, taking 2 off of the Pain Lands and 3 from the Adversary. And Ash at a comfortable 23 life.
Zoe plays the Appraiser here, and that's an interesting play to me. I wonder if that's just to block.
Wow, and it looks like offering the trade and taking it too.
All right. Guess that's that. So Peacekeeper comes down. We're gonna see it naming a braid again. The Peacekeeper. Oh, Liliana.
Okay. So saying, I don't want you to play Liliana next turn, so you can abrade my thing and then try it again the turn after. But we know that there's another Anointed Peacekeeper in Ash's hand. So, but another 2-drop to follow up on Zoe's side. So able to abrade and play that Bank Buster here.
Yeah, that Bank Buster is going to be really good because, well, I don't know. Because the Peacekeeper can tax it, right? They're going to tax Liliana anyway. They could have Peacekeeper the Bank Buster because that makes the crew cost 2 more. It makes the draw cost 2 more. And that can slow down the whole plan too. This is interesting. I think Anointed Peacekeeper works on Planeswalkers, not just to cast, but also to use the loyalty.
Right. It's like it does. You are absolutely correct. It costs more. It's not, I was gonna say it's like a pithing needle, but it's not. It can still be activated. It just costs more to activate.
So that's insane then, because the Planeswalkers essentially have a +4 tax with Anointed Peacekeeper because you not only have to pay 5 for Lily, for instance, but you also have to pay 2 for the discard or sack. It's like, oh my gosh, a 7-mana Liliana the Veil does not sound as good as a 3-mana
one. Right. We'll see. Now this is Fable of the Mirror Breaker coming down here. It's a decent blocker, honestly, as the 2/2, and you know, might be able to get rid of that 5-mana Liliana and make something better of it.
I find this really interesting. Every spell that Zoe has played so far is less than 4 mana. And I think that decision in sideboards was very purposeful. As we remember, Zoe sided out a couple of the Invoke Despairs, specifically to play around Disdainful Stroke. I think that's really paying off right now.
Yes, and we'll see. Looking at Zoe's list, in the main deck there are 4 Invoke Despairs and 1 Jaya, and that's it as far as spells that Disdainful Stroke would hit. So and even in the sideboard there are 2 Burn Down the House, 2 Sorin, and that's it. So this Disdainful Stroke definitely has a certain purpose. Like it's pretty much just like a counter target Invoke Despair, I'm guessing. Yeah. So
speaking of Burn Down the House, by the way, look what Zoe just drew.
Or maybe counter target Burn Down the House. I didn't see that coming.
Well, saw it coming, rotated, last set. Okay, that was really terrible. I'm sorry.
No, I like it. That works for me. And poor Lily gets played into the abyss. Anointed Peacekeeper just says, get out of here, get off my plane, and attacks Lily. Lily goes away. But there is another Lily that has been drawn, and technically speaking, I guess Reflections of Kiki Jiki could block. But
I mean, I think an interesting play actually is potentially like burn down the house, make tokens, crew the bank buster, copy the bank buster with reflections, then draw. That could be that's a wild play. I'm kind of spinning my wheels a little bit, but that's something to focus on. Oh, blood type. Okay, this is great because now this gets cloned. Oh, it doesn't get cloned. Oh, right, because there's some sense. I see.
It's okay. We're talking about next turn. I'm excited for
Don't
next
pay
turn,
attention.
right? Get stoked for next turn because we see Thalia, and no way for Ash to stop this the blood tithe harvester train from leaving the station. So,
Yeah.
like you said, it's going to be again. It looks like Ash is about to get caught in the abyss where they're just going to play a creature. It's going to die to harvester. They're going to play a creature. It's going to die to harvester. So,
Yeah.
and Liliana
And
can take care of whatever's still alive. So
absolutely, and every single harvester that comes in, the amount of damage, quote unquote, damage it deals is even more. So it's like eventually, it's just everything's gonna die to it. It doesn't matter how big it is.
Or you could just draw a braid.
Oh yeah, you could just draw a braid. That's true. I didn't think about it that way.
I mean, Ash is at an extremely healthy 29 life, and we see Zoe is at 9, but just a land and disdainful stroke in Ash's hand at this point. So I'm not sure if what can Ash draw here to get back into this game?
Well, the flame blast bolt helps at least to deal with the harvester. I'm wondering if maybe there's an argument that you could deal with the reflection because a top decked harvester or corpse appraiser just gets there with the reflection out. To draw, it'd have to be like 3 taxers in a row, like 3 anointeds or more Raijus, things like that. Big hitters, but there's an Invoke Despair on Zoe's hand.
Oh, and
We'll see.
Yep.
Yeah.
Corpse Appraiser coming down. I'm going to eat an intrepid adversary and take a little licky-loo at the top. Going to take that swamp. So maybe hoping to be able to double spell next turn with the treasure and 7 lands in play right now.
Yeah, and the double appraiser because of the fable. Now it's just drawing 2 cards a turn basically at worst. Wow.
Blood Tithe Harvester out there on the battlefield, able to crew up that Bank Buster, and even that 1/1 pilot's getting in. So we see that is a very healthy attack for 8. So Ash dropping down to 15, drawing another land, and that is not going to do it. So we will see Zoe take down this one, moving on to 3-0 in division number 11 with Grixis Midrange over Jeskai. Taxes. What a match. That was a tight matchup.
Absolutely. The Texas deck definitely is such an interesting game plan because it really shows you the power of Thalia and a Peacekeeper. But oh man, if they get under it and they remove your pieces one by one, it can be such an issue, especially since you have cards like Fable or Appraiser that literally draw a card when they enter the battlefield or are the equivalent of such. Oh, that's so rough to get around.
Yes, and you can see it's definitely a very interesting archetype that I haven't seen much of lately. It definitely has a control because you think taxes, you control the game, but it has a very aggressive side as well with cards like Sunrise Cavalier and the Guardian of New Benalia, things like that, being able to just kind of get in the red zone and get your opponent dead. But good games to both of our players, both Ash and Zoe. Best of luck to them in the coming weeks. And let's move on to our next matchup. We'll be moving over to division number 9, taking a look at Cass here. She is on Orzhov Midrange. So Orzhov definitely interesting to me because Orzhov, I would think like why not Esper, but maybe Rite of Oblivion is a good answer because that card is bonkers. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, Rite of Oblivion and Cass also mentioned Roadside Reliquary, a card that I sometimes don't think about. Really designing the deck to be around those pieces instead of things like Make Disappear or Raffine. Such an interesting way to go about addressing your opponent's threats.
for sure. And I definitely love a lot of the card choices here. We see some main deck Sorin. I feel like Sorin not getting a lot of love. Standard right now, it's kind of like a maybe one or two of, and some sideboards and things like that. So I see some Sorin. Restoration of Iganjo, just an absolute, just 4 of in this deck. Very good, super powerful card. And just I say a couple of Wandering Emperors hiding in there, a single Farewell, and a Celestis as well. So, as I'm not sure, ramp or just like to set off those roadside reliquaries, or to give a little card advantage.
I think it literally is just all of the above, right? I mean, one of the major parts about midrange, like you mentioned earlier, is about the flexibility of everything that it can do, and that's what Celestis does. It's an artifact. It loots through your deck, gets rid of your lands. It gains you a little bit of life if you need it, and other things like Iganjo. You can discard Bankbuster, get it back. Discard a land, get it back. Make a 3/4. It doesn't die to cut down. That's cool. It does so much.
Is that like don't die to Doomblade sort of thing? Like
a little bit.
Like
I mean, that is important, right?
Right. I think it is very important. I think that's why cards like Anointed Peacekeeper are really good. And unfortunately, cards like one of my favorites, Helena and Elena Partners, is not very good right now because it's like, oh, it does cut down, like, but can't play it, I guess. But I will say, so this is our first, we see Portal of Phyrexia being the most feared card coming out of Brothers War. So
no. This one is
Rootwire Amalgam.
Yeah.
Oh, Rootwire Amalgam. Wow. That's out of left field. I wasn't expecting anybody to say that one. All right.
Well, add it to the statistics.
All right. Let's do it. Rootwire Amalgam, tick 1. And I see Teferi as the first word on this.
It's here.
Here he is. Teferi gets another tick. So Teferi is up to 3 ticks on the night for the most weird. 3 out of 4, 75%. And that's coming from Aura here in division number 9 on an Esper aggro deck. Aggro, not mid-range, not Esper control. This is Esper aggro. Give me your thoughts.
I think the most interesting choice here in terms of comparing this to what you would maybe call a normative Esper midrange is Toulouse. She really should be renamed to Win because that's the purpose of putting it in the deck. Anyway, the thing is about Toulouse is that Toulouse makes Rafine insanely good because if you attack just one time, killing Toulouse with the cut down or an abrade means that you get to draw 2, 3, 4 cards. And this is on top of the fact that every creature in your deck is a threat.
I kind of want to call it to win now.
To win. That's what I always call it. I'm like, really, to lose? But I always lose when I play this.
I like it. I like this take on Esper here.
Me too.
I love Jadar making those zombie tokens. I feel like Jadar, a great card, just hasn't quite found its place in the world, its niche. It's like the deck that needs it and wants it. So maybe Jadar has found their home here in this Esper aggro deck. I can only hope. So
yeah, I mean, it was easier to play it in last standard when you had easy sack outlets, especially with all the learn stuff and Lolth and other things like that in the format. But now it's a little more difficult to mishmash it all together.
All right, and I'm excited to see these 2 decks in action. So we are going to be watching again. We have Cass on Orzhov midrange, and that is the side we'll be watching from. And on the top of your screen, you will see Aura on Esper aggro. So we'll see Cass going down to 6 pretty quickly here, and Aura will start us off with both tap lands on both sides, and so kind of.
I like how Cass has the land up immediately just before she even takes her swing. He's like, I know what land I'm playing. I want to point out something. When Cass mulliganed, she bottomed the plains, and that's important for restoration. You want as many plains in your deck as possible so you can draw them.
And as if you've spoken it into existence, restoration was the draw on Cass's side, and we.
What can I say?
I feel like we've done a lot of future seeing here. The future sight. That's on par with the magic thing, right?
Well, here's an interesting matchup where Thalia is clearly doing so much work. Look at that. Look at Cass's hand. Everything's a non-creature.
And as much as I love the card Rite of Oblivion, you have to have something to sack to it. So Thalia, yes, doing a lot of work, and this is sizing up to be a very quick game number one. Although I will say, two of the cards in Aura's hands are repeats of the legends that they already have out on the battlefield.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is unfortunate because that's essentially removal insurance, which Cass just simply doesn't have right now. Not having that turn 2 Spirited Companion to feed the Rite of Oblivion, oh, that's so rough, honestly. And there's a Ratadravik on the top deck. Oh, man.
Oh, my. So Thalia and those tokens getting in, and Cass is down to 6 life already. You know, can play a wedding announcement and make a 1/1. You know,
Actually, that will result in Cass's win. That 1/1 is actually the most powerful creature you'll ever see in the entire game. Sorry, that's sarcasm. Maybe that was a little. I mean, it's rough being in a situation like this, being so far behind, because stuff like this happens, and you're like, all right, fine, I give up. You got it. Fair enough.
Yeah, that was
it's just
a punishing game.
Yeah, it's so rough.
All right, Aura, you win. It is Esper Aggro. Okay, I get it. I understand now why. So point made, Aura. Let's move on to game number 2 here as our players move to sideboards. And taking a look and kind of wanting to keep things lean on the side of this Orzhov mid-range deck, as kind of a little punished there for, honestly, even for not having anything smaller than a 3-drop. So that was kind of tough.
Absolutely. I think the interesting thing to see side in, and I think this is because of Thalia, is the Archangels of Wrath, which are nice removal spells that don't get taxed. And we'll have to see if that plays a role in this game. Because if Thalia comes down, that thing is still 6 mana or 5 mana, kill a Thalia. That's nice.
Yes. We'll take it.
Sarah Paragon, interestingly, staying in the sideboard for now.
Looks like thinking about it. Going to move to. Oh, that's all. It's all coming in. 50. I'm playing 75.
That's right. Yeah. This is truly the major strat of the day. Is no one will ever see it coming. That's what makes it so good. Spanish Inquisition strategy. Nobody expects it.
Oh, well, it looks like To Win has come out of the deck, as has Jadar. And just shaving some creatures here and there, shaving an Adeline, and a couple of others.
I think the curve is being reduced down to being lower to the ground because those 2 mana counter spells are coming in, those negates are coming in, which are so clutch against a deck that has so many non-creature spells in it.
Right, because like you said earlier, this is an open deck list tournament, so these players each have each other's deck lists. You take a look at it. This is a big competitive tournament. Season number 8 we're in VML. And actually, I will say for the first time ever, so there's a lot on the line this season. You can get to the regional championships through the VML and get onto the Pro Tour. So pretty sweet end of the tunnel here this season. Got to fight through 127 other people to get there, but somebody's going to get there.
Absolutely. Oh, this hand on the top. Aura's hand. Oh, man. Look at that.
No black. Little awkward, little slow.
If it had one single black mana, yeah. So both players mulligan. Fair enough.
Yes. So keeping it fair. Both going down to 6. Double Archangel of Wrath, Farewell, Path of Peril, and Restoration on the side of Cass. Just 2 lands. And looks like a little opposite on the side of Aura. She's looking at 4 lands, 3 spells. So 3 lands, 3 spells, and it's like a 1, 2, 3 curve. So kind of a nice hand, honestly.
That looks good. I do like Duress a lot in this matchup because of the sheer amount of non-creature spells that are going to happen. I wonder what Aura's going to take here. My guess is Iganjo, just because it comes down so early. But Farewell could get taken as well. Oh, nope. All right. Well.
Perhaps in the way of like trying to keep your opponent from hitting that third land drop or something along those lines. Hope that they stumble just a little bit more so that we can build up a board here as we see Aura just playing a tap land and saying go. Roadside Reliquary, that's the draw from Cass's side, and a pass back of the turn. So a lot of Drago.
No, Drago is my favorite type of control deck, so you got me there.
Yes.
Rexy Missionary is such an interesting card. I find that card so interesting because of the deck that has so many non-creature spells, but yet Missionary only gets back creatures. So the targets can be a little bit limited. That may manifest itself in this game. We'll have to see.
So we'll see. Infernal Graph's taking care of that Archangel, and the little 1/1 token from Wedding Announcement gonna get in and multiply a second Farewell the draw here. So having the option of Path of Peril, but it looks like Phyrexian Missionary is going to be the play.
Yeah. This may turn into the Cass is going to board wipe 3 times in a row and just make sure that Aura can't do anything game. Especially if Aura did sign in the counterspells, but doesn't have them yet. And the auto tapper has clearly indicated that Aura doesn't have a counterspell in her hand. So Cass may be taking that as tacit approval that Farewell will resolve.
Yes, we see Phyrexian Missionary happy to block. So Wedding Announcement, instead of making a token, will draw and flip. So pumping up those creatures. And it is to be noted that Path of Peril would not take care of that Rafine unless it is the cleave cost is paid. So
yeah. And now we can see the effects of that Eiganjo not being there because she can't get to that Path of Peril without that extra planes. Oh man.
No. I'm pretty sure we saw that before. Infernal Grasp taking care of Archangel of Wrath once again, hitting the graveyard. And back to Aura's side, who has an Otawara, a Wedding Announcement, and a Denic all in hand. So a question of what she's willing to play out here as Cass is tapped out at the moment.
This Denic is so interesting because that Missionary cannot get back anything as long as Denic is out.
Right.
That text is not usually relevant, but when it is relevant, it can be killer for sure.
We see Rafine getting in here. So before any decisions are made on what to play and what to do, Aura is going to connive and double Eiganjo with a draw. So going to discard the Denic and one of the copies of Eiganjo and say, are you gonna block?
Well, if Cass does block, I mean, you don't Eiganjo here anyway because there's no reason to. Oh, wait. Is it happening? Really?
Not wanting to gain the life, perhaps?
Oh, I guess so. You're right. That makes sense, I think. But 2 life, I don't know if that's enough. I guess it's fine. Maybe if Aura has a really specific plan for the clock that she wants to have down.
Yeah. I mean, she does know about the Path of Peril and the Farewell in Cass's hands. So maybe just wanting to get Cass dead ASAP. And Phyrexian Missionary again. It's back.
And this is where sort of discarding that Denic is not necessarily helping because now the Missionary is able to get back the other missionaries. You can do the loop now. Oh, I see. That makes sense. Yeah. So yeah. Okay.
Missionary for the missionary.
Missionary for the missionary. I mean, the Gravedigger loop is real.
It is. Listen, I've Goblin Matron for Goblin Matron before. I get it. I like it. I'm here for it.
I mean, there you go. So the interesting thing is Aura just drew Thalia, which means that Cass needs to wait 2 more turns for 2 more lands for the board wipes instead of 1 more turn.
So perhaps playing just Phyrexian Missionaries and Phyrexian Missionaries and just stay on the...
Yeah, that's what you need to do.
Let's see, it looks like 1 Wedding Announcement going to hit the bin from this connive. It's just a question of what the second card is going to be. Tempting to keep that Trespasser as well as that Thalia. Not really wanting to get rid of the Otawara. So what else is going to go here? Maybe it is Thalia. And that's what it looks like it will be. So going to keep Wedding Announcement, second copy of Wedding Announcement, and the Graveyard Trespasser.
This is interesting because now that Thalia is discarded, if Cass top decks a land, she's basically, that's it. Like 3 wipes is going to get there.
Yes. And the fact that it takes care of,
I think that's fine.
That's a land, but it looks like it's going to be Phyrexian Missionary to bring back Phyrexian Missionary first.
Yeah. Oh, right, because the Thalia doesn't work because you can just Path of Peril uncleaved, kills the Thalia on the token. That actually makes a lot of sense now that I think about it.
Yes, and so now Aura is going to be very hesitant to commit anything else to this board, which is probably why she held the second Wedding Announcement and this Graveyard Trespasser. That almost, hoping that Cass maybe doesn't wipe the graveyards and have the Graveyard Trespasser actually do something and to be able to eat the targets for Phyrexian Missionary. But Cass is still at a healthy 17 life too.
Absolutely. This is definitely not where Aura wants to be. She definitely wants Cass to be at a lower life total at this point because Aura wants to sort of pretend that she has a counterspell so that Cass tries to think, okay, maybe I can wait. Oh,
pretend, huh? Okay. It's like a sixth sense, isn't it? It's like the counterspell. You saw this one coming.
in my mind's eye, I pay 1 and I draw a card when my opponent draws a card, you see. That negate is essentially all Aura needs to win this game, I think. The fact that Cass was not able to draw that untapped land.
Agree. I mean, there are double farewells in hand, but I don't know that that's it. And Otawara only costs 2 now. So being able to bounce the missionary as well.
Yeah.
Depends on what Cass does with this turn.
So if Cass believes that Aura has a counter, Destroy Evil might be the correct play just because you're playing around, say, make disappear. And you have to kill the Rafine, because if you don't kill Rafine, it's just going to fly over and just murder you.
That's right. So looks like, will the ward be paid?
That's a good question. Will the ward be paid?
Otawara going to bounce Rafine.
It's interesting that Aura did that before allowing the ward to resolve. That's usually sometimes that 1 mana really makes a difference when you are using a ward card. Letting your opponent pay the ward before you counter their spell is usually pretty important.
Yes, and we see because of that 4 mana open for the kicked Phyrexian Missionary, which will bring back Archangel of Wrath once again to Cass's hand, and that Rafine's going to be replayed, and into the red zone goes Adeline, a token, making another token, and going to connive 3 here. Land, and ow.
You just say ow?
Ow?
Ow, like you've been punched on the shoulder.
Oh, it's ale, isn't it?
It's ow.
It's ow. Oh. Maybe I should.
Yeah.
Ow.
It's ow. Okay. Everybody says it ow.
It's not ow. Somebody told me today it was ow, and I believed them. Or was that yesterday?
I pronounce it ow, like the Japanese pronunciation. Oh, here's the Path of Peril.
Ow.
Here we go.
Oh.
And this is going to be.
Can Aura let this resolve?
Maybe actually, because Farewell is worse because it exiles the graveyard. Maybe Aura just lets this resolve and tries to draw a land, play Ow, hold up the negate so that Ow doesn't get exiled. Okay, there's the negate. All right.
But
That would have
No
been so
attack from the side of Cass and just a land on the side of Aura. But Aura, like we said, does know about that farewell. So gonna try to see what value she can get here out of this connive. A make disappear might do it.
well,
I guess they sacked the Phyrexian missionary to, or I mean,
she
Saka.
doesn't necessarily know that Cass has another farewell, right? So
True.
maybe Aura's thinking she can survive the first farewell, then play all, but then the second farewell is just going to get there, and Aura has to decide: does she want duress or make disappear? She might think, oh, duress is enough, but make disappear might be the correct one. But does Aura realize?
I mean, if you're on Cass's side and you see Rafine and Ow,
Yeah.
Ow, go to the
All. Yeah.
Ow. Well, I'll get there. Go to the bin. You gotta be petrified. I won't say ow anymore.
No, it's fine. It's really not that big of a deal.
No,
It's
no, I try.
here's the make disappear.
Yeah, here's the make disappear, and Cass feels it coming. And there it is, sacking one of the tokens. The good game from Cass, and gonna scoop him up. So Aura's gonna take this one down. 2-0. Well played on both of our player sides, but that Esper aggro deck, I mean, it was definitely aggro in game number 1, but it played more of that mid-range strategy in game number 2 and was able to ultimately just take it down. So that was great. That was impressive, but impressive play on both sides, sort of recognizing what was important in the matchup. And a good game and good luck the rest of the way. Both of those players are now 1 and 2, so still alive. Everybody, it's only week 3, still alive, still battling.
Absolutely. I mean, we really saw the power of Rafine in that game. Without Rafine, no counter spells, no dealing with board wipes.
No, definitely, conniving their way to victory, as Rafine does. And I don't know about you, but I am ready to get on to our next matchup. We are moving on to division number 10 here. And Benji is on Grixis Midrange, our old friend. We can see Corpse Appraiser here, and there's a couple more swords. We got a Celestis in this one. You got your Fora Fable. I see some Jayas in there, though. Like I said, I feel like every list I see a little bit different. There's, a little change here and there. So any thoughts on this deck initially?
I mean, the Jayas are definitely very interesting. The fact that it's a planeswalker that you don't see as often. I'm really curious to see if it pops off. And another thing I'm noticing, I think, looking at this list, there's no Bloodtithe Harvesters at all, which is a very interesting choice. I wonder if that's trying to meta against Cutdown and stuff like that.
To tell you the actual truth, I was looking through the list and I was like, is there really, like, I thought I was just missing them. So yeah. I was like, I had to like reread again. I'm like, I'm just overlooking them. They're somewhere. Maybe they're at the fancy border and I'm just like not seeing it, like the Corpse Appraiser, and I'm just missing it. But no, you are correct. No Bloodtithe Harvesters. That's wow.
And we have 4 make disappears in the main. 4 make disappears with 0 Bloodtithe Harvesters. We'll have to see how this plays out. I'm so curious.
I will say part of it could possibly be because, like we said, this is open deck lists and week to week. So you get to go into week 1, week 2 and go, hey, my opponent won these last 2 weeks playing, some control deck or whatever. And Bloodtithe Harvester is not going to be very good here, but make disappear will be. So you can sort of metagame, and sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. We'll see if it works out for Benji here as we look at her opponent this week. We have Jason on Izzet Tempo. So this deck or similar deck made some noise at Worlds a couple weeks back, and people caught a lot of attention, and people were like, hey, this deck's pretty sweet. Some shore ups, some haughty gins. And
some haughty gins.
Right? I had to stop myself because we call it haughty naughty, and I'm like, I have to not like. But it's just, it goes. But Haughty Jin. So that's why there was a pause between Haughty and Jin, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, Haughty Jindo is despite the fact that its name is extremely funny to say, it's also a powerhouse, and being a thing that just lands, and if you can keep it out for like one turn, it just gets there. It bashes face. And then the Leer, there's a Leer in this deck. I haven't seen Leer in a while, like since Divide by Zero was in the format, which is, by the way,
two
my favorite
Leer.
card.
Yeah?
Two Leer.
Two
Yeah,
Leer.
I love Divide by Zero. I'm so sad. Anyway, that's besides the point. That was last year. This is different news.
No, Leer, like don't call it a comeback, right? So Leer is back. Leer is in standard. A lot of people forgot about Leer being legal in standard right now. They just assumed that it rotated. But
yeah, they thought that he was illegal.
Well, Jason is here to remind us that it is not. So, and let's get into our matchup here. Again, we have Benji on Grixis Midrange and Jason on Izzet Tempo. So, getting into it, Benji's hand a little awkward.
Mulliganing a hand with 5 lands and 2 appraisers. That makes sense to me because you need the removal to make the appraiser actually work. Like no one's going to self-mill themselves in this format.
Right. So we see Benji keeping a hand. It's double cut down and a make disappear. Unfortunately, those cut downs not great in this matchup. There are copies of Cemetery Illuminator. 3 copies of Cemetery Illuminator in Jason's list. As we can see, 1 in hand at the moment. No third land right now from Jason. We'll see if that changes with the Consider that is in hand. But nothing from either of our players so far, as Benji just plays a second land tapped and passes back. We'll see that Consider out of Jason's hand. And looks like a Shore Up went into the graveyard and going to draw a Leer. But to follow up that Leer for the draw step in Odawara, hey, it's a land.
That was a really clutch land draw because the Consider binned a card, drew a Leer, non-land. Oh, those probabilities. Yes. Oh, there's another land. Nice. That's so good.
And 3 blue lands and then the Lounge. So able to have that red for the Strangle, but being able to meet the high demand of all those blue pips in hand as well. So super important there. We see some options here. So being able to play that land and then hold up a card like Shore Up, how important is that on the side of Izzet Tempo?
Oh, it's literally the most important thing. To play your Haughty Jin on turn 3, you basically have to be 100% sure that your opponent doesn't have removal for it. Or a counterspell for it even, right? Because you could be holding up something like Spell Pierce. So like a situation like this, like that Make Disappear was their last turn, but we know that Benji has removal, and Jason has to assume that there's always some amount of removal happening.
We'll see Tomkinson getting channeled here. One of the lesser used channel lands, I feel like. We'll see the couple of 1/1s made. I feel like I always see Tomkinson just kind of hit the battlefield. So looking to get a little aggressive on the side of Benji.
So only one thing in Benji's hand actually kills Haughty Jin, which is super, super, super duper relevant, because now Benji has to realize if Jason has any way to answer this, Jason's in the driver's seat. Yeah, there's the Shore Up, and nothing Benji has can address this. You cannot abrade to lower the toughness, because that's not, even though Arena tells you the toughness is lowered. It's not actually lowered. It's just damage. But
I feel like that's my one qualm with Arena. I get very confused sometimes where I'm looking, I'm like, is that actually a 2/1? Or wait, it's not, because if I can't cut down it, so.
Now here's an interesting thing that could have happened, and I won't go on this too much, but Benji could have attacked with both of the creatures first, expected a block, then abraded first, then while Jason played the counterspell, cast the Infernal Grasp, and that could have been a way to get the Haughty Jin off the table. But I don't think Benji wanted to risk losing those tokens yet.
That's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot of resources on the side of Benji, but maybe it was necessary. Only time will tell. As Benji's still at 17 life, Jason's at 18. This is still early on in the game, but we see Jason's got a pretty powerful hand with negate, make disappear, strangle to answer any serious creature threats, and then leer to kind of just run it all back. So
absolutely. Once that leer can land on the table, I believe at 6 or 7 mana. It's going to be really hard to address because Lear also does not die to cut down or abrade here.
Right.
Oh, have you considered today? Let's see here. So I guess if I'm Benji, what do I want to see? I probably want to see Fable because Fable is a nice card advantage engine. I probably want to see a removal spell to deal with the Hottie. I probably want to see anything that gives me card advantage, but I don't want to see Invoke Despair because Invoke Despair is going to be tapping you out, and you're pretty confident. In fact, if you see the list, you notice 4 Make Disappears. I forget. Does Justin's deck have 4 Make Disappears? I know Benji's does.
4 Make Disappears in Benji's list. Oh wait, 4 Make Disappears in. I think it's 3 Make Disappears in Jason's list.
So it's still reasonable. Yeah, enough that you need to keep it in mind. Absolutely.
Yes. Also 3 negates. So
this could get countered by double Make Disappear, but that's not worth it. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Illuminator's gone. Doesn't do that much. Ooh. This is a card that really, really shines in this matchup is Bank Buster. It's a fantastic card.
Being able to draw, and like you said, and you want to build some card advantage, try to get back into this because it's hard to answer those threats.
Yeah, but tapping the 2 so it gets countered by Make Disappear super easily now. That's rough. It's so rough. Reckoner, if you get it done earlier in this type of matchup, is really nice because you're eventually drawing more removal than your opponent is drawing answers for the removal. And that's so fantastic, especially since Reckoner needs to be addressed anyway. It essentially can be a 4/1 if you let it live. Super duper relevant card.
Looks like those little 1/1s still getting in. So Jason down to 14, Benji at 12.
You like 1 mana impulses?
1 mana impulses. Yeah, impulse getting in. There we go. Looking at the top 4. Making that Hottie just a little bit bigger. Changing it from a 3-turn clock to a 2-turn clock here.
And honestly, that's all you need. Once Hottie power is above a particular amount, you don't need it to be any bigger. There's no reason to keep putting spells in the yard. Usually 7 is a critical value because it's 3 hits from 20 to 0. And then there's 5, which is obviously 4 hits from 20 to 0. If you played during last standard at all, Hall of Storm Giants was big for that, for control, because that's 3 hits, right? 21 damage. Always thinking about that sort of thing. There's another impulse. Into another impulse.
Feeling impulsive, I suppose.
I mean, Jason is clearly considered today, and also impulse today. Both of those. So now we're really seeing the effect of what happens. I mean, maybe that play earlier where you could have braided the Jhin, that's just so important. Maybe it did matter.
Yeah, we see the Jhin, and then because Lear, the only other threat that Jason has drawn, and that turns off all the counter magic. So this game would have looked quite a bit different in that way.
Of course, all of that is dependent on whether Jason blocked at all, which he might not anyway, because open deckless, looking at the tokens, seeing that there's a braid, you want to play around that. You don't want to risk your Jhin dying. That is that. Wow.
And that'll do it for game number 1 here. We see a pretty convincing win from the side of Izzet Tempo in the hands of Jason against the Grixis mid-range deck in the hands of Benji. We'll take a look at Benji's sideboard here first. We see some counter magic. Those cut downs coming right out. Cards like Siphon, Insight, Bankbuster and Structural Assault. Probably not so interested in the assaults. I see Duresses. Any thoughts? I see Siphon Insight in a lot of sideboards and things now too.
Yeah, Siphon Insight is really nice in these matchups where you know your opponent's playing a lot of counter spells, because when you steal one from them, you not only get one for your counter war, but you make sure you ensure that your opponent doesn't have the opportunity to top deck it later. Siphon Insight is one of those cards that makes me irrationally upset when I play Control, especially when they take my negates, and I'm like, no, that's my negate. It's a feel bad situation, but it's fantastic against Control decks.
I love it when people play it against me because I don't play good cards. So I'm just like,
I mean, that's the way to do it, right?
Right. I'm just like, yeah, you want my deck? Go for it.
There you go. The Duresses, I would expect the Duresses to be cited in here as well. I would be surprised. Oh, they're not being cited in. That's interesting, because Duress is a fantastic sideboard card here. But I wonder why they're not doing it. Probably because it's not necessary, maybe. But I don't know. We'll have to see.
Let's see. There is an unlicensed hearse in the sideboard as well, so I know that turns off a lot of Izzets and mono blues game plans. Unlike a card like Crackling Drake, Audition only cares about cards that are actually in the graveyard and not in exile.
Absolutely. And being able to play red with Izzet gives you access to a Braid, which is such an important piece if you want to deal with the hearse at all. Mono blue can't address that. They can play Invoke the Winds potentially. They can try to counter it, but they can't usually kill it once it's on the table. Red, however, has that option.
Yes. So see, I see those Rending Flames in there.
That's for Shieldreds. Gotta have them.
Kill target Shieldreds.
Kill target Shieldreds. Or even like Sorin pluses, right? Because it kills Planeswalkers too, I believe.
Rending Flame, I believe you are correct.
Yeah, Planeswalker. So Sorin pluses, you get Rending Flame. That's 5 damage. It's at 5. Bada bing, bada boom. Everything's done. So these two hands are interesting. Jason's kept a 1-lander. Oh, wait, no, a 2-lander. 2-lander, sorry.
I mean, even with triple consider, I'd be like, really?
Actually, I think with triple consider, a 1-lander is totally fine. This is kind of a hot take, but when you have the amount of digging you have in a deck like Izzet, it's fine. Oh, I love this feature. You can see
the stroke go to the graveyard and draw an impulse. So even more digging. Jason just gets to dig all day.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Must be a prospector with all that digging.
I can get behind prospectors, the skirk kind. That's my
absolutely. Benji specifically chose not to play Fable, potentially playing around the counterspell, I think. But it's interesting because that would have resolved. Of course, Benji couldn't have possibly known that, but
right.
It really shows you the effect of bluffing that counterspell and how important that can be.
Right, I'm surprised because we see that on both sides having been an option. The Fable of the Mirror Breaker. We'll see if that comes down here on the side of Jason. Like, so maybe Benji's doing the same thing, bluffing the counterspell.
Yeah, absolutely. And the interesting thing that happens is it's usually broken when someone actually has the counterspell, like Jason does, because then you're like, okay, cool. So I think you have a counter, so you're gonna try to counter my thing, but I have backup. Do you have backup? And it feels like a game of poker sometimes because you're like, I don't believe you have a counter. And then they're like, haha, I got you. Or, yeah, you're right. And see where that goes. And so Silkenzon cannot be countered.
Right?
Anyway.
Nice negate. No.
That's going to be like, well, it can be countered by Stifle. But I don't know. I mean, it's true.
Audition on top. Keep that one.
Nice. Absolutely, I agree with you 100%.
We'll see. Another consider putting Impulse into the bin and going to draw a Spell Pierce. So a good way to be able to protect that Haughty Djinn as it comes down, and a second Haughty Djinn the draw for turn here. So that's fattening up the hand on the side of Jason. You got a lot of gas in hand.
So there's a 5th land. Does Benji decide to invoke Despair here? Oh.
Spell Pierce gonna get you.
Interesting play. But then they could have played around it by playing Fable, I think. Or they could have tried to risk it by playing Jaya. Or they could have just abraded the token. I wonder if this is gonna... This might snowball after this.
We'll see. We see the 2/2 getting in and making a treasure. And Benji thinking about it. Gonna let that happen. So dropping down to 18 life. And the first Haughty Djinn gonna come down already an 8/4 from all that early digging. And look, it's Siphon Insight.
Unfortunately, Siphon is more useful as a turn 2 play than it is a turn like a turn 6 play. It's so much nicer when you can set up with it. And this is the double abrade, but that's going to get countered.
Yes.
You have to.
Not going to allow that to happen. So now it is a 9/4, that Haughty Djinn. Not going to get in with the 1/1s. Looks like that's going to do it. Because it flipped and Benji getting the emotes ready.
There's Urtai. But yeah, now Haughty Djinn is at that critical value, which was 9 now, because of course that's 2 hits to kill. And Illuminator chooses that. Currently there's an island on top of Jason's deck, but it really doesn't matter. Right. I don't think.
We see the Haughty Djinn getting in for 11, and that Goblin token getting in for 2. Shieldred, too little, too late. Would have been nice when all those considers were happening. But unfortunately, the Apocalypse, not quite what the doctor ordered.
Yeah, the doctor is like, sorry, you can't do an Apocalypse today.
Yeah.
Shieldred's like, oh. Dang it.
Tried. That wasn't an Apocalypse as much as it was just like a little bump there. It was just like, yeah, you drew a card. 2 life. Unfortunately.
Oh, and there's another Haughty Djinn on top of the deck.
Oh my goodness. Haughty Djinns for days, and Haughty Djinn is going to be what takes this match down in the hands of Jason. So Jason going to win that match over Benji on Grixis. Good games to both of our players. That was an interesting. That was a pretty good performance from the side of Izzet Tempo.
Absolutely. And I think it really shows you what happens when people are sideboarding and metagaming around what they think are the most common, right? Because if you're building this tempo deck around, okay, I think I'm going to see Grixis, I think I'm going to see Esper, then you're going to play cards to try to address those threats. You're going to play things that can deal with Invoke Despair. You're going to play things that deal with Shieldred. All of that stuff is going to happen.
Right. No, for sure. And both of those players were 2-0 going into that round. So now we have Jason at 3-0. Benji still at 2-1 of really, powerful, good, records, looking good to head into the playoffs and everything. We're only in week 3. There's plenty of time left, but, they've been playing what they've had success with so far in the season. And we'll see, because things are going to change a lot next week with Brothers War hitting, mixing things up in Standard and, Teferi coming to ruin everything. Again.
So everybody says.
So everyone says. I believe them for what it's worth. So
I haven't been convinced yet, but I probably could be pretty easily.
Me and you, we'll talk when we get to week 6. Yeah. we'll have a chat, a little chat. we'll see what Teferi.
Be like, I told you so. I told you so. Only like a newspaper. It's like extra.
Teferi's face.
Yeah.
Oh. But for now, we're going to wrap up our Dominaria United Standard with one more match this evening for week number 3. We're going to head over to division number 12, starting with Daisy on Mardu Midrange. So Mardu, we haven't seen yet tonight. Mardu's kind of fallen off. A lot of people picking up Rakdos instead of playing Mardu, or playing like Esper instead of playing red. So, drop the red, pick up the blue, make it work. But Fable, just such a good card. Again, Blood Tithe Harvester. Daisy's playing 4 of them. Also, very good card, very powerful card. Any thoughts on this deck list? I see some Archangel of Wrath in the main deck here.
Yeah, so it feels a lot like we're seeing a deck that is kind of the amorphous combination of the Orzhov mid-range deck that we saw earlier with the Grixis deck that we just, not the one we just saw, but the one we saw earlier. And so what happens is you have a deck that is Fable and Archangel and Rite of Oblivion and Shieldred, and you get all of them together. And I think it's an interesting strategy because the mana base for wedges such as Mardu is not as supported as the mana base for shards like Esper. And so we'll have to see in this matchup if that ever emerges itself as an issue.
Now, I know Daisy didn't say that she's afraid of Teferi, but she's saying that if there's a card that she's afraid of, she'd be playing it. So that's what I was saying about the whole "if I can't beat him, join him" sort of thing with Teferi earlier. That's to me that's code for Teferi. So
yeah.
But I'm looking forward to seeing this Mardu mid-range deck in action. Rite of Oblivion, one of my favorite cards in Standard right now. So hoping we see that one shine. As we look on the other side of this matchup, Emmet, and they are on Selesnya Enchantments. Everybody thought, the runes were gone, no more enchantments, but we're back. There's Teferi. It's just, and you know what? I like their answer. I like Emmett's answer here because it's just like a lot of people wrote, well, I'm waiting to see, or I won't get ahead, and Emmett's just like Teferi, temporal. I feel like when you're in trouble and like your mom uses your middle name. Like my middle name's Florence. My mom. I hear Nicole Florence, and I know I'm in trouble. Like Emmet was like Teferi, temporal pilgrim. That's what I'm afraid of. Just the full name. Like, don't mistake it for anything else. This card is going to be trouble. So that's the impression that I get from Emmett's answer here. I don't know if I'm right or wrong about that, if I'm reading too far into the context, but Teferi terrifies me. If you haven't noticed. So
well, you can put that one on the notch, and this is the last one, right? So how many people?
I'm ticking it off. I have 5 written down because I counted Daisy's as Teferi.
Wow.
So wow. I'll take more than half. That works, and a root wire amalgam. And then like somebody said, a couple of people said they weren't like worried about it or something. Somebody said they weren't worried about what was happening, and so I was like, oh, okay, I guess that doesn't count for anything. But root wire amalgam on the bottom of the totem pole there. But Teferi, scary card.
It's very scary.
It's very scary. But I'm very interested in this in this enchantments deck because I thought, Showdown of Skalds gone. All the runes, Runefeller Champion gone. I'm just like, oh, this deck. I played runes and I did not see this deck coming or staying. Like I knew some people were playing green white enchantments, but it's still a thing. Jeskai, a Naturalist is a great card. Generous Visitor scales up so great. And I see Restoration of Iganjo, a new addition to this. Kami of Transience. There's a lot of good recursive threats here. Any thoughts on the power level of this deck?
I know that Kami of Transience and Catilda are marked as the cards to watch, but I'm really curious to see how Sarah Paragon plays here, particularly because this deck is not doing the plan with Rite of Harmony. I've noticed that they're not doing the thing where they get Rite of Harmony and they just draw like 6 cards in a single turn. Instead, it looks like more of a slow burn where they're trying to incrementally get advantages with things like Sarah Paragon and the removal like Burrow Time. And you have Iganjo really getting there. Catilda's going to smash in the air and hopefully get through Rafine, right? Potentially, of course. Mana base, Botanical Plaza. I love those lands from New Capenna, and I never see people playing them. So it's really cool to see stuff like that. Bamboo Grove Archer in the sideboard? What the heck? That's so cool.
Emmet, you have a fan.
I mean, you can counter Haughty Djinns without being worried about make disappear.
That is true. That is true. So we're going to just get right into it here and take a look. And now we are on the side of Daisy. who is playing Mardu Midrange. And on the top, we have Emmet on green-white enchantments. And any thoughts on these opening hands here? I see it looks like Emmet going to ship back that 4-land hand. It kind of seemed a little clunky. Daisy happy to keep her 7.
Yeah, that first hand had 3 channel lands in it, though, which is interesting because that means you can at least do something with the lands. Although it didn't, it was very threat light. So I think that Emmet really, especially since Emmet's on the play, they really want to have those things down as soon as possible before Daisy can remove them.
Right. Daisy's hand not too fast though. Daisy's hand also equally slow, with cards like Rite of Oblivion not being able to play that until getting some fodder from a card like Wedding Announcement anyway. But Shieldred's definitely looming.
It is. If this was the Rite of Harmony build, then Shieldred would be a lot more threatening. But since it's not, it might be okay. Emmet's fishing for a land. Got it. That's good.
Never didn't have it.
Never didn't have it.
Generous Visitor coming down. So would have liked to have played those in the other order, but like you said, needed that 3rd land. So Spirited Companion, Generous Visitor, both on the battlefield, and Emmet feeling better about being able to take off here as we see Wedding Announcement coming down on the side of Daisy. And no 4th land from Emmet, but definitely some options here in cards like Jeskai Naturalists that can be followed up by a Michiko's Reign of Truth here as Naturalists making enchantments cheaper. And we'll see the Naturalist coming down, making the Spirited Companion bigger from Generous Visitor.
I do like the Weaver of Harmony here because the Michiko can come down later. It is a bigger hit, but you want a board presence against a deck such as this because if they're drawing removal spells, if they're playing things like Invoke Despair, you know that they're not playing things like the Mihawk Massacre because that was the best wipe, and of course we don't have that anymore. And you know they're not playing wipes, so it's like go wide. Go wide, go wide, go wide.
Yeah. Weaver pumping up the team itself is pretty sweet here. But Shieldred, the Apocalypse coming down. That 1/1 not going to get into the red zone quite yet. So we'll see. Draw a card. A Restoration of Iganjo is the draw on Emmet's side. And still options here, but
yeah. Absolutely. This not a bad draw either. I'm wondering if Emmet's trying to figure out if Hallowed Haunting should be played first. Because if that Naturalist dies, then Iganjo is kind of awkward. But the Haunting can really get there. The Weaver of Harmony might get activated too. Depends on how this goes. Oh, Catilda comes down. Okay. Interesting.
Being able to get in the air for that life link. Life may be very important as Shieldred does tend to chip away at things, but the Rite of Oblivion in Daisy's hand is an answer to something. And having both of those 1/1s, being able to cast it and cast it again next turn feels pretty good.
Absolutely. And the main deck Destroy Evil too, just to notice that. The fact that you can basically pay 2 mana and destroy like 90% of Emmet's threats. Ugh. That's so unfortunate.
Yes.
There goes Catilda. It's exiled, so you can't flash it back with Disturb. That's always important.
Not looking to attack here, so just going to make another token. Going to flip that Wedding Announcement to Wedding Festivity and pump up the team here. So Shieldred, as if it wasn't big enough, is now a 5/6, drawing Spar's Headquarters on Emmet's side.
It's just a 5/6. I mean, how bad can that really be, right?
Definitely thinking here, this is a big turn for Emmet because what they choose to do here is going to dictate what Daisy might choose to use their removal on in Destroy Evil or the flashback of Rite of Oblivion. We'll see Hallowed Haunting be the choice. Generous Visitor going to pump up the Jeskai Naturalist, and down comes Hallowed Haunting.
Yeah, Daisy's already holding up the Destroy Evil. Yeah, that's main deck removal for what would normally otherwise be difficult to deal with. If you were, say, Grixis. But since you're in white, you can get that extra extra value.
For sure. And we'll see. Playing that headquarters here tapped. Make sure to have plenty of mana open for next turn. Holiday Haunting, not long for this world. Lasting about half a turn. So we'll pass it back. See Sundown pass. Speaking of pass, back to Daisy. And Archangel of Wrath going to come down, kicking it.
Kicking it. A popular show from the Disney Channel from the early 2010s.
We'll see.
That's a really amazing. That's a really amazing 3-for-1 though, honestly. Especially since the Angel has lifelink, damage that it deals will still gain you life, even though it's not in combat.
Right. As we Daisy's at 23, and Emmet's at 16 and feels the need to chump block the Shieldred here.
Because it gets returned with Iganjo next turn. That's actually a super cool play. I really like that.
So we see that happen. So Emmet planning out their next turns. We see Restoration of Iganjo come down. Yeah. Picking up the card.
Wiggle there with the Invoked Despair. Yeah. I feel like we have an idea of what Daisy's going to play next turn.
Most likely. We see the Michigo's Reign of Truth. It feels really bad to play that and not be able to take advantage of that pump immediately. So It looks like that might just stay in hand for now.
That Shieldred has been walling off Emmet's entire plan for the past 4 turns. It's just so amazing how much that bricks the plan.
I mean, it's already a 4/5. Does it really need Death Touch?
Yes, obviously. Because otherwise my 5/5 is going to beat it in combat, and I don't want that to happen.
Obviously. Oh, that is lethal. Oh, my goodness. The pump, I was like, the pump, you know what? Listen, math is for blockers. Unfortunately for Emmet, there weren't any blockers on the battlefield as Invoked Despair had taken care of that, drained some life, and drawn Daisy some cards. So now we're moving to sideboards. I'm going to look at game number 2 here. So let's take a look. Those Destroy Evils. Daisy goes, give me all of them. I want them all.
And those Path of Perils are so important to kill the tokens, to kill the 2-drops. I mean, Catilda's the only 3-drop I can even think of, and Iganjo, I suppose, that don't die to the uncleaved path. Wow.
Yes, there are, things like Wedding Announcement makes tokens, the Hollow Haunting makes tokens. So a lot of that just kind of dies to Path of Peril. The Sarah Paragons don't. We'll see if yes, we'll see how much interest Emmet has in siding in or out some threats, because have to make sure not to get overtaken too early, but also not losing the late game. So Emmet hoping to overwhelm the battlefield before Daisy has a chance to, again, like she did in game number 1 here. We'll take a look at Emmet's sideboard, and Circle of Confinement has a couple in the main, has the option to bring in another one. Some Destroy Evils, take up the shield, depopulate, touch the Spirit Realm. Bamboo Grove Archer.
Yeah, that card is wild.
Yeah.
So interesting. But I think you put a counter on it and it blocks the Haughty Gen, right?
Yes.
And like I was saying earlier, you channel it for 5 mana. They can't counter it with negate. They have to have a hexproof. So I don't know though. That's interesting. I am wondering if Emmet is going to side in the Destroy Evils. Because it looks like they're not. Which is interesting to me. Because if Shieldred was such a big issue, you'd want Destroy Evil, I would think.
That and the I suppose once they come down, they've kind of dealt their damage, but the Archangels of Wrath that we saw in the first, and then it also does destroy enchantments. So, it break in case of emergency. If you need to take care of a Fable, the Mirror Breaker, Destroy Evil will get the job done for at least the reflection of Kiki Jiki part.
Absolutely. Take up the shield. That is a card I've never seen in constructed play. That's so interesting.
It is a one of an Emmet sideboard here, so definitely an interesting one. Also, still also playing 2 Tamio Safekeeping that we can see have come in as well, along with a one of Fang of Shigeki in the sideboard that has also come in with that your 4/5 Death Touch, meet my 1/1 for 1 Death Touch. All right.
Mine is cheaper, therefore it's better.
Right.
Got it.
Pretty sure that's how it works. But 1 land hand, and it's a slow land from Emmet. So we're going to ship that one back real quick here on the play. We see 3 lands, 4 spells, and on the side of Daisy, 4 lands and 3 spells, although one of them is a channel land, so it's like a half a spell anyway.
I do like this hand a lot better than the first one, and I feel like Emmet's probably going to keep it, but I'm wondering what they're going to get rid of.
Yes. I mean, Jukai Naturalist does make the Borrow Time and the Prayer of Binding cheaper, but those are very reactive spells, and Emmet needs to decide what role are they going to play in this particular match, and that's kind of hard to tell without knowing what's in your opponent's hand. So
yeah, but you do know what's in your opponent's deck, and if you're Emmet, you know that your opponent has a ridiculous amount of removal spells. You have to prepare for that.
yes.
You have to be somewhat aware that your opponent's probably going to play something on your guy. Like Jukai's going to come down on turn 2 probably. But you have to be aware. I'm sure Emmet is painfully aware about how much removal that Daisy plays in her deck.
Yes. We'll see. Emmet just gonna fire off that Naturalist, but unfortunately, the Voltage Surge in Daisy's hand that she drew last turn just has Naturalist's name on it.
Well, it depends. Maybe Cut Down is the play, and Voltage Surge can be used for a bigger guy, right? Because Cut Down doesn't kill a 3/3 or a 4/4. Voltage Surge can, and that might be relevant later in the game.
We'll see. Holding up that Cut Down, deciding exactly what to do here. Definitely debating, and it looks like Cut Down will be the play, taking care of that Naturalist, and just going to play a Swamp and pass the turn back. Wedding announcement. So a nice 3-drop here on the side of Emmet. Very timely draw. We'll see a 1/1 come out of that, and a Sundown pass on the side of Daisy. Now, is Fable and Mirror Breaker getting slammed here?
Oh, I'm 99.9% sure.
Let's windmill that right onto the battlefield.
At least it wasn't the 0.1% sure.
Listen, sometimes they know something we don't know, as we've seen. So,
right, or the opposite. They don't know something that we know.
ooh.
You know? Yeah. Sorry. So they exiled the Fable and not the token, which I think is interesting. I think that's right, though.
Like preventing getting that extra value with the loot, and then the ultimately the reflection of Kiki Jiki, which can prove to be the biggest problem, I suppose.
Yeah, and it's really paying off because we see Daisy's, and Emmet doesn't know Daisy's hand, but Daisy has 3 lands there. One of them is a channel land, but the fact that Fable could have allowed her to discard those 2 lands and draw a gas, and is being prevented from doing so, that's so relevant in a game like this, where Emmet really needs to prevent Daisy from drawing any answers.
Yes, and it looked like Archangel of Wrath gonna kick it.
Gonna kick it.
Oh. Deciding how, it doesn't matter exactly how you kick it, but gonna kick it. So 2 damage to one of the little 1/1s, and gonna gain a couple life. So Daisy up to 22. Weaver of Harmony, the draw on the side of Emmet. Now has take up the shield up at any time, and Sarah Paragon as well in hand. And it looks like Sarah Paragon is going to be the play.
And there's the Destroy Evil thing. I was gonna say Voltage Surge doesn't kill the Paragon because
it was almost gonna live.
Almost gonna live, almost, just barely. But that top deck Destroy Evil, which of course Daisy would have had a lot earlier if Fable had been allowed to stay on the battlefield. So
yes.
But then, dang. There's always little things that you can change, right? Because if the token went away, then there wouldn't have been a mana for an Archangel to kill the token. Like, it's just go back and forth.
Well, is there a world here where the Destroy Evil could take care of the wedding festivity, and then the Voltage Shards can also take care of the Sarah Paragon, and it would shrink the team at the same time?
That actually, I like that play. I wonder how valuable it is, because there's 2 cards in Emmet's hand, and Daisy is clearly in the driver's seat here, I think. But also letting Emmet untap with that Sarah Paragon is so dangerous, because if you destroy the wedding announcement without destroying the Paragon, or even allowing Emmet to draw a second Paragon, that could be really problematic in the future. Of course, now that that's 2 damage, it's marked on it. Oh, wait. Okay. Daisy gets the Fable back. That makes sense.
So it looks like Fable's coming back, making another Goblin token. And just 3 lands in hand, though, for Daisy. Even though one of them is a Takenuma, is a channel land, it's still kind of underwhelming.
Yeah. If only Emmet had, well, woulda, coulda, shoulda, I guess. But if only Emmet had a Tamio Safekeeping along with another land, and that could have protected the Angel, and then I think Emmet would have actually been in the driver's seat there, bringing back potentially the. But man, no, this is rough.
Yes. As we
Not
see,
gonna lie.
Weaver of Harmony is coming down here. It does not pump those tokens, however, as they are not enchantment creatures. And Take Up the Shield is up, and Archangel of Wrath here is the draw. Able to discard up to 2 cards. Just going to ship the Takenuma as well as the other land in hand, Sulphur Springs, drawing a land and a Path of Peril. Wow.
There it is. The fabled path, and Daisy has 4 Path of Perils in the sideboard, so drawing this isn't even that unlikely. It's
right.
Just, oh man, wow.
It's more of a matter of time.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember doing the calculations when I was playing Doomscar, and it came out like 50% of the time you're going to have a Doomscar on turn 3 ready to go. It's like, really, 50%? Half of the games you're going to play. So Path of Peril being here, totally expected, and clearly going to pay off. Although,
this is interesting. So
yes,
that didn't save the Weaver of Harmony, but it does protect it from a second main phase Wrath, which is kind of what that attack said.
Yes. That was an interesting play. I think Emmet wanted to make sure that got the counter. Of course, it can be targeted, but it can't be killed right now. And the Archangel is just going to bash in for even more. And this is the situation where, like I was saying earlier, interesting that Emmet didn't side into Destroy Evils, because that could have killed the Archangels.
Yeah, we see Weaver of Harmony all on its lonesome and no protection from that Path of Peril. Just a 4/4. You know, I mean, it sizes up fine against the Archangels of Wrath, but when they're attacking for 6 lifelink every turn and you have a 4/4 on the ground, it doesn't feel so great.
Daisy the Life Total just so happens to be twice the amount that Emmet's is right now. It's a fun well, not anymore. Well, that's sad. No, just I want the maths. I want the maths.
Yes, well, we'll see it. Reflection of Kiki Jiki has hit the battlefield. We are on that 3rd chapter. Double Rafine's Tower in hand, but that doesn't matter. The card that really matters in Daisy's hand right now is that Path of Peril. Will we see it come down here? I can't imagine, you know, with 2 planes in Emmet's hand.
Oh, Daisy's going to do it. Okay, interesting. So I guess so. If Daisy only had like 2, then yeah, I would probably be more hesitant to do so. But considering Emmet doesn't have anything going on,
as an
I guess that makes sense.
Unfortunately for Emmet, another land is not what they wanted to see here. Plains, overgrown farmland is their hand at the moment. Double planes still staying in hand. I'll land on Daisy's side, but Daisy, she doesn't care so much. She can cycle at Rafine's tower, see if she can find something to finish things off here. Yikes. So, gonna just copy an Archangel of Wrath here, get in for 9, gain 9. This will bring Emmet down to 1, Daisy up to 43. Do you even play the Blood Tithe Harvester here? Do you bother?
Absolutely. Absolutely not. Because Daisy
slim.
saw in Emmet's sideboard had a farewell, if I recall correctly.
You are correct.
So
there's a single farewell.
Daisy had no way to verify whether Emmet actually did side it in. I believe Emmet did. I can't remember. But you still play around every little thing just in case.
At that point, yes, Daisy was going, how do I lose this game? And it's only maybe to farewell. But good games to both of our players. Daisy's taking that one down on Mardu Midrange. 2-0 on against Emmet on green, white enchantments. Good games to both of our players. Very well played, and best of luck to them for the rest of the season. Both of those players now in Division 12 are at 2-1. So still battling, still going strong. But we are done here for the evening. That does it for week number 3. That does it for Dominaria United Standard. We'll be checking out Brothers War Standard starting next week, starting week 4. Super exciting. We'll be looking at divisions 13 through 16, I believe, next week. I'm in Division 16. So we'll see. But a really entertaining night. Like we saw some mid-range, but we saw some dominating performances from decks like Izzet Tempo, some more Tempo, and Esper Aggro tonight was super impressive. Definitely, I'm very happy to see that Standard seems to be very healthy and very fluid and dynamic at the moment. So what a night. What are your thoughts, our parting thoughts on week 3 here on Dominaria United Standard, on what we're looking forward to from here on out?
Well, everybody seems to be worried about Teferi. That's definitely something I've noticed. I wonder how Teferi is going to slot into some of these existing decks, right? Because we have some of them were playing Jaya, some of them were playing Sorin, although we didn't see a Sorin or Jaya land for a very long time. And so I'm wondering, like, Teferi in some of these black decks is competing with Invoke Despair at the mana level, right? So as on the curve, it can be kind of awkward. It would be the same problem if Shieldred ended up costing 5 instead of 4. So I'm wondering how that's going to play out. We obviously saw the power of Rafine and Fable the Mirror Breaker here. And that selection that comes with the card draw, that insane amount of looting, it doesn't even have to be card advantage. It's just have the right thing exactly when you need it. And that seems to be the energy of what the previous standard was. But with Brothers War, it might even be more of that. Who knows? I mean, with all the Unearth we're going to get, all that draw and discard is going to be twice as good because you don't even need to worry about keeping it in your hand.
I'd say it's a lot to look forward to or not look forward to. I'm not sure. Well, the VML has a lot left in store this season. We've got a lot going on for the rest of the year. We've got season 8, 9, 10 VML championships to look forward to later on in the year. We're going to be sending some people to regional championships, sending some people to the Pro Tour. It's a beautiful, exciting thing. If you want more information, make sure you're following us at VMLMTG on Twitter. Or find us on Discord. We have a great Discord community. Make sure you look us up. And of course, as always, a big thank you to our sponsors, Wizards of the Coast. They're the ones that have made this season and our future seasons possible, providing the invite to the next Magic Circuit events and things like that. They have been so supportive and so wonderful. And speaking of supportive and wonderful, make sure you check out Good Luck High Five, GLHF. It's an awesome podcast. Maria, Megan, they are both absolute rock stars. Love them. They're just wonderful members of the community. So make sure you give them a listen, and make sure you give us a follow here also on twitch.tv/VMLMTG. Big thank you to our players. A big thank you to all our viewers out there. A huge thank you and an absolute pleasure to work with my partner here, Kuro, tonight. Like, it was an absolute honor. So I was happy to to kind of like I don't know, lead you into the world of VML production. Is that
I mean, I had a great time, and you're an absolute great co-caster. And I'm so sorry if I ever interrupted you because, like, I know the connection and all that stuff. But just
Well, if
anything,
I
you
could
should interrupt
interrupt
me
you
more often.
both on the hot mic here, I want to say that I've done my part in leading Kuro astray. So this isn't all on you, Nicole.
Well, what Phoebe is saying, that I can't take full credit, but I can also thank Phoebe for being the most phenomenal producer that anybody could ever ask for. So Phoebe is an absolute pleasure to work with, week in and week out, always here, behind the scenes, and sometimes not so behind the scenes. And I kind of like it that way. So Phoebe, thank you so much for everything. And thank you all again for joining us tonight. We look forward to seeing you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel.
Same bat channel, yeah. Nice. Our 3 viewers who are about who actually know what that is.
Everybody knows Batman.
Everybody knows Batman. It's true.
See y'all next week.